Hi, you guys, and welcome back. We are starting this week with part 2 of our amazing discussion with Dr. Willow Brown and Leah Piper. Now, if you didn't have a chance to listen, you want to go back and listen to part 1. We are talking all about sex, baby. We're talking about Taoist and we're talking about Tantra, and they just have so much incredible, informative information for you guys to listen to that I really implore you to go back and listen to the first part. And then we're going to continue on with our conversation for this second part. So just to remind you that Leah Piper and Dr. Willow Brown are the masterminds behind the Sex Reimagined podcast. It opens the minds and hearts of its listeners to the vast possibilities that exist within the realm of sexuality, spirituality, and relationships. With a combined 40 years of professional experience in the sex and intimacy space, these two ambassadors of love are ready to support you on your journey with sacred sexuality and all that it encompasses. So without further ado, we're going to continue our conversation. Here we are with Willow and Leah. Enjoy. So if I'm thinking of an act where you have a man and a woman, and maybe you have your hand on both of their, the other person's chest, and you're doing an eye thing where you're just staring into each other's eyes. Is that more of a tantra?
Yeah, that's more of a tantric
that's more of a
exercise.
tantra dance.
Yeah. The word itself, tan, is a
Yeah.
Sanskrit, means expansion, and then tra is a weaving or a tool for expansion. So that's what that word means, tantra. It's a tool for expanding your own sense of your essence, your own sense of your capital S self. It's a tool for expanding your capacity to experience pleasure and love and joy. And so with those expansions, and then here's where the Tao comes in. Everything in life is an expansion and a contraction. Every single breath we take is an expansion and a contraction. Every day and night, expansion, contraction. All month long, we go through an expansion to a contraction, especially as women, but as men too. And so that contraction and expansion is all, when you're practicing life in a tantric way, it's all in the name of expanding yourself and your connection to life, your connection to, so it's like, I can do tantra with a tree. I can have a tantric storytelling conversation. I just was talking, oh my God, Leah, the other night I was having dinner with this couple and this man, I was like, I got to get Leah and this man together. They will never get to the point. They will talk story in circles. Leah is a tantric storyteller. Like, she will take her time and she will draw it out, and it's so delicious and so yummy to listen to her tell stories. And then she'll go on a little tangent over here because it feels good, and then she'll bring in this piece over here, and it was just like, it was so fun to listen to this man talk story, because there's no rush. There's like rule number 1 in tantra: no rushing allowed. We're not trying to get anywhere. We're just being present with what is. Like, how long could I linger, at this tiny little corner of the wrist?
Yeah.
How much pleasure could I pull out of my partner's little tiny corner of the wrist or pinky finger? This is the end of the heart meridian, So it's like, wow, what if I licked the entire heart channel and then sucked on the very tip of it for like a whole minute? What would
That's a great
gosh.
idea. Yeah, I mean, I think just to like sum it up, I think what we're talking about here is, this is the answer to this thing that most of us feel deep inside of us when we have the feeling there's got to be something more to sex.
Yeah.
This can't be all there is.
Yeah.
I know that there is something more.
Yeah.
And if you ever have had that feeling inside, let me just encourage you to dabble a little deeper into this realm, because for me, this has answered that deep, deep desire for something more.
Wow. I love it. I love it. I'm loving this. So, okay, on my previous episodes, I've talked a little bit about orgasms and the act of faking orgasms, because I know a lot of us do it. I've done it in my past before.
Sure.
So
I've done it.
Yeah.
I have never done it. I have never done it.
You really?
Not one
wow.
time in my whole life.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness. I love when the man says, oh, I know when you do. I'll know if you do. And I'm thinking, I have, and you didn't know.
Yeah.
But what strategies can you employ, like, to reach this genuine satisfaction without resorting to faking?
Mhm.
What's the best way to go around that? If you're not being pleased, I know being vocal, just verbally saying what you need. Would that be your suggestion for people to do that, or do you have other
Yeah.
ideas?
Well, I think one of the big sort of misconceptions around your own orgasm is like that you're thinking it's because the other person is giving it to you.
Mm,
You know, that we got to
yeah.
reframe that. Like your
Mhm.
orgasm is your thing. It's
It's
your
your
Yes.
experience. It's
responsibility.
your responsibility. It's your
Yeah.
feeling. It's inside of you. And
Hmm.
so you can breathe and sound and pull your own Shakti or your own Jingqi, we call it in the Tao, is like sexual energy. You can pull your own sexual energy up for yourself and
Mm.
move it through your own body. So if you're kind of with somebody and you're like, oh, I'm just, have to fake an orgasm to get through this, to get done
Yeah.
with the experience, it's like you're robbing yourself of your own essence.
Yeah.
That's an opportunity right there for you to cultivate your own sense of capital S self. And
Wow.
you're throwing it away. And sometimes you're doing it because you're like, I'm too tired. But the reality is it will give you more energy in the end. It will give you more health. It will give you more vitality. I mean, I'm thinking back to a moment where I was practicing with a new tantric practitioner, somebody who was just getting into it.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh my gosh, it was terrible. It was really a bad experience. And I was like, wow, this couldn't be worse. And I was like,
Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to call it. Like it was the first time in my tantric career that I was like, nope, this isn't going to work. I'm just going to have to say no and walk away and end this session.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, let me just give it one last ditch effort. And I reached down inside of myself and I was like, all right, I know how to breathe. I know how to sound. I know how to move my own arousal energy through my body. I
Yeah.
know how to work my body. And so I did, and I started to pull, and I got super fucking aroused, and I got
Wow.
really turned on, and the sexual goddess within me just started to go to town in that room, and it kind of blew him away. Like it kind of was too much for him, but like literally he couldn't handle it. And so, it's like, why
Yeah.
don't you just play with that, ladies? Like, could that be possible for you too? Could you like find your own arousal and find that place within? And what if you tried to blow your partner of 25 years out of the water for the first, like just for fun? Like, what if you
Yeah.
just try?
Yeah. And so
Wow.
what that requires is to take yourself on a journey. There's
Mhm.
no quick answer to that question
Yeah.
because every woman is so different. And this is where like we're giving you permission to go find out how to be responsible for your own pleasure. What turns you on?
Mm.
When someone would ask me, what turns you on? What's your fantasy? My answer was, I don't fucking know.
Yes.
Try something and I'll tell you if I like it. Like
Yeah.
that's all I got. That's all I got for
Yeah.
you. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because I didn't know it was my job.
Yeah.
No one told me that I was supposed to know.
Right.
They're the ones that want to do it, so shouldn't they be the ones who know? And
Yes.
that is such a crapshoot.
Yeah.
It is a crime that we don't know as a culture of vulva owners to go, no, let's go find out. And one of the places you can go find out that really made a difference for me to understand my body, because when the answer is I don't know, you don't know where to go.
Yes.
And so it's not just simple as like, well, just tune into your arousal. Well, that's great if you know the path to your arousal, but if you
Right.
don't, then you got to start somewhere.
Hmm.
So things that helped me was those Kegel muscles, PC muscle
Hmm.
control. I got to the point where I could get so strong and play with separating my pelvic floor muscles. So when I just squeeze my ass, that
Hmm.
squeezes a different part of my vaginal canal. When I squeeze the PC muscles, the central big hammock size muscle, pubococcygeus muscle, that
Uh-huh.
squeezes a different part of my vagina. When I squeeze the lower abdominal muscles, that squeezes another part of my vagina.
Wow.
I had to learn that.
Yeah.
So then you can learn how to play your pussy like a 3-string instrument
Right.
for
Right.
you, not for them. And by the
Yeah.
way, they better have some
Yes.
ejaculatory control because sister, when that goes off, it's a thrill. And so I learned like as I start to play with these muscles for myself,
Yeah.
that would bring down the female ejaculation.
Yeah.
That would help me lubricate. That started to do that would bring my attention to the fact that I like it down there because
Mm.
otherwise I'm in my head all day long. So
Mhm.
there's just bringing your Kegel muscles into a dance brings your
Yeah.
attention to the part of your body, helps secrete natural lubrication. brings you home, can, if you choose, think of it as a sacred place. All sorts of things can get churned up there, and that
Yeah.
can bring me into a high state of arousal without anybody touching me. So you kind of have to take yourself onto some of these journeys and study with experts who have figured it out for their bodies.
Right.
Another suggestion is using the power of your mind. The thing that's been blowing my mind at 45 years old is erotica. I've never self-pleasured so much in my freaking life. I mean, I'm discovering things about my erotic mind. And I've been in this industry for 20 fucking years.
Wow.
No one said you should read some erotica if you want to learn how to get turned on. It's
Yeah.
opening doors I never imagined. How exciting. I bet at 60 I'm going to find something else that blows my
Yeah.
mind. It's like it's an
That's the
ongoing
expansion.
adventure.
Yes.
You gotta have a love for learning, and you gotta get curious. And
Yeah.
it'll take you everywhere you want to go.
Wow. Y'all are making it sound so good. Like, I want to just try and learn all of this stuff because I never have, like I told you. And so I'm loving hearing about it because it's things that I know that I can work on, that the audience and listeners can work on as well. And just
Yeah.
taking it one step at a time, right? Just starting
Yeah.
really somewhere
Yeah.
small. So
Yeah.
let's talk masturbation. So do you feel like the use of, vibrators, things like that can often like desensitize you or alter our responsiveness to things? I know,
Yeah,
some
they
of us tend
can.
to use that, a lot more.
Yeah.
Well,
And how do you
they
feel
definitely
about those?
can. If you're using a vibrator on a really regular basis, it will desensitize your clitoris. But if you're
Yeah.
using it for special occasions, it's fine. And
Yeah.
that's kind of how we recommend using them. Like not every night to just get your stress out,
Yeah.
but more just like as a fun, like maybe with your partner sometimes and without your partner sometimes, but like few times a month, 4 or 5 times a month, something like that, rather than
Yeah.
every single night. But your clitoral, there are 10,000 on the little nose of your clitoris. There's 10,000 nerve endings, and which is interesting compared to the whole shaft of the penis,
Yeah.
which has 4,000 nerve endings.
Wow.
So we have tons more in a tiny little space. So that's why the clitoral head, sometimes it's just too much for women, which is,
Yeah.
that's how being more of like a magnet with your tongue and your fingers and your energy can be really juicy for a lot of women. Like don't touch it, just pull it toward you, And
Well, I would just add that, like,
masturbation. Yeah.
there's I think the more variety in sex toys, the better. Don't get
Yeah.
hooked on just one.
Yeah.
And then find, like, you have non-vibrating dildos. Have clitoris suction cuppy things. There's all sorts, and we've got a couple episodes with
Shameless sex girls. Amy
yeah,
and
the shameless
April.
sex stores. The shameless sex store. Is that what I said? The shameless
Girls,
sex girls
they
podcast.
have a store.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are like experts in the space. And what's so funny is that April's actually blown her clit to the point where, like, she numbed it out. She used way too much vibration.
Oh
so you
my
can
gosh.
burn out your clitoris.
Yes.
And don't worry, it can be.
It will
You can bring it
come
back.
It
Yeah.
will regenerate.
If
Well, I've
you-
had to
if
teach
you
a
take
lot
a-
of women
if
how
you
to
take a
wean
little-
themselves
Yeah.
off of a vibrator.
Exactly.
So, and then it can create a lot of friction in a partnership because then it
Yeah.
feels like your partner can never compete with the
with the
vibrator.
vibrator.
So, or it can be very additive to the relationship.
Yeah.
So there's
Some of the
things
best
to
sex I've ever
navigate.
had with another person, a vibrator was involved.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
So, just play with it and know that if you are someone who's been using it every single night and you feel really kind of addicted to it, there are ways to wean yourself off, like Leah was talking about, and your clitoral, all those little nerve endings will restore within 30 days. So you might need to do a 30-day clit cleanse.
Yeah. And I will say that if what you're wanting is to wean yourself off a little bit, even just so that so what happens when we get too adjusted to one way of self-pleasuring, whether that's with our hand, whether that's with a vibrator, whatever the case may be, what happens is we create a very deep groove, a neural pathway in the brain that says, this is what works and this is the only route I have. So think about Orgasm Lake in the middle of the woods. Everyone loves Orgasmic Lake. There's tons of paths to Orgasm Lakes, but we found our one path.
Yeah.
That's always easy. That gets us to the diving board.
We
And
know
so
where
just
every
take
foothold is. We
that
always take that
route.
same path.
Same
right?
route.
And
Yes.
this is also true of porn and how porn becomes a porn addiction. Is we go through the same path, the same path, the same path. We've worn that path down. And just like a neural pathway in the brain, it creates a groove in the brain. And what happens is one day we wake up and we realize, I know there used to be a bunch of other trails around here, but you can't see them because you're you're in a ditch. That's
Oh,
how many times you have worn out that path.
wow.
So, what I love to tell women to do is if you have a habit, and who doesn't like to get to the lake as quickly as possible? I get it, no judgment, but you want to discover the other trails with your vibrator, wherever you normally put it, in order to get off, put your finger there. And then put the
Okay.
vibrator on top of your fingertips. So
Oh.
you're still getting some current, but the current isn't quite as strong. So the current can pass through your actual touch, the real
Mm.
touch that has energy and heat and sensory, so that you're starting to bring more of that human connection. And now
Mm-hmm.
you've got a little bit of the vibration coming in. Same thing with your
Mm.
partner's penis. If you're a penis lover, you can put the vibrator up against the penis instead of, or up against his fingers or their
Okay.
fingers, instead of just using the vibrator on top of the area that you would normally vibrate.
Yeah.
And then eventually you could bring it up a little bit higher on the arm, and then up to the
Yeah.
wrist, and then up to the forearm, and then up below the elbow, and then beyond the elbow. And so that you're dulling the amount of vibration so that you can get stimulated
Yeah.
without all of that high
I
octave
could do that.
velocity
Yeah.
coming through the plug or the battery.
Wow. So a lot of women, I know you've said, you do a lot of master classes and webinars and everything on helping men and women enhance their sexuality. And, I think I read, yeah, like 18% of women struggle to orgasm through penetration.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
I,
most
I
women.
am, I am one of them. I
Mm.
used to just say it's because I'm tall. I don't know, just kidding. I just had and I went with that, and so I think that a lot of women are like that out there, and then they do resort to, the vibrators, and they think, well, I can
Sure.
do it with that, and then that's why you
Mm-hmm.
start getting on that trend of using it every night.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you unlock that sacred gateway for women to find their sexual bliss?
Yeah.
Mm,
That's
Yeah.
a
such a
great
good
question.
question.
I'll try to answer it briefly, and then I'm sure Willow will have something to add to it. Um, what's really important is that we come to understand, and this means you have to do your homework. You have to read a book, a great book called The Anatomy of Female Arousal,
Mm,
by Sherry Winston. We've had her on our
okay.
podcast twice. She's a hoot. You'll love her, and she's really helped us see, and by research in the last, I would say, 10 to 12 years, it's really come to light that women have as much erectile tissue inch for inch and ounce for ounce as men. So if you
Mm,
think about a hard penis right now,
hmm.
now imagine you've got one, but your cock is dispersed. Your erectile tissue is in these various bundles, both on the outside, which is called the vulva, and inside, which is vaginally. If
Uh-huh.
you can activate that erectile tissue, and we don't have time to go into all the various aspects of that, of the anatomy of that on the outside of your vulva first, then when you go inside, the blood will have already started to come into the erectile tissue in the
Mm,
inside. The problem is premature penetration. We're all trying to get that thing in, whether it's fingers or cocks or dildos,
yeah.
inside. And we're not taking enough time on the outside to make sure that we are arousing all that erectile tissue on the outside. And it's not just the head of the clitoris.
Yeah.
There's tissue underneath the labia that needs to get plumped. So what you want to do is you want to look at your vulva. Here's what my vulva looks like unaroused. And then
Okay.
massage your vulva for 5 minutes and notice the changes. Is it fluffier? Is it a
Mm,
darker color? Is it getting thick? Are the lips gradually peeling open? And so
mm.
then massage it for another 5 minutes and see how it changes. See how it
Yeah.
And think
glistens.
about something sexy for those five
Yeah.
minutes because the biggest sexual organ in your whole body is right between your ears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so what's wonderful about this exercise of the mirror and every 5 minutes checking is, even if you can't feel your arousal,
Hmm.
because some of
You
us are
can
very
see it.
numbed out, you
Insane.
can start to see it. And what that helps you feel is that my body works.
Yeah.
My
Mm-hmm.
body does know how to do what this arousal thing. Now
Mm-hmm.
I just have to figure out that the wires got crossed between the genitals and the brain, and I just got to
Mhm.
get my loops, my
Mm.
circuitry back on board so I can feel the thing that's there in the mirror. And what
Yeah.
I came to see is when I didn't rush penetration,
Yeah.
then when I was penetrated, taking the time to see those changes and to have my
Mhm.
partner feel those changes and give my partner permission to look for the changes too,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
then vaginal orgasms became much easier. The other
Wow.
thing that you can do to activate vaginal orgasms is by massaging the G spot and the prostate
Hmm.
gland, gently massaging the cervix. There are 4 different nerve pathways that carry 4 different orgasms to the brain, and there's different locations to activate those nerve plexuses.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm.
so you can actually have like a 4-layer orgasm but you have to be able to stimulate these various places, and no one has taught us about this.
Yeah.
So it's not your fault you don't know, ladies or gentlemen. For those of you that are listening, this
Yeah.
is why you would come to a class with Willow and I, or you do some one-on-one coaching, or you look at Sherry Winston's work, and you go that we have gotten a very poor education. And half of this stuff, most of this is not taught in medical school. So your
Yeah.
doctor doesn't know to tell you. It's only people who really study anatomy and who are sex nerds that have figured out a lot of this and then been able to piece it together. And that's why we have a lot of these researchers and these authors on our show, so that we're getting this information.
Yeah.
Because it's there just hasn't been a lot of funding, especially with female sexual health,
Yeah.
like
I
there
think
has with male sexual health.
right. And I think that is the
Very
biggest
few
thing is
there.
we don't know all this stuff. I mean, a lot of women, I'm sure a lot of the listeners don't even look at their own vagina
Yes,
with a mirror. Like that is
of
taboo for some
course.
people. They, they
Yeah.
never want to look
Lots
at
of
it. And that's a
shame.
huge
Ew, I don't
thing.
want to look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just take it out and like get to know yourself down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to dig in for some courage
Yeah.
in order to choose to look at being more conscious
Yeah.
with your sexual life. Because when we don't look at our subconscious, when we don't allow ourselves to investigate these things that aren't conscious to us yet, then what happens is so the shadow, it's like our life just operates and we think it's fate.
Yeah.
We think it's just life, when really, no, it's just an uninvestigated mind. And so, I hope this episode will turn some people into sex geeks.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, I
Kidding
think
me?
also one of the things that we have to do is value ourselves. There's
Yeah.
one of the biggest things that we see when clients come to work with us is a lack of self-worth. That's usually underneath
Yeah,
anyone's
it's where I
problems.
started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like, do you value yourself enough to take the time to actually do this, to, light some candles, to get some oil, to set yourself up with a mirror, to get a flashlight so you can actually see what you're looking at, and to maybe listen to some Dipsea or read some
Yeah.
erotica or something to get yourself turned on, and then to massage the vulva, the outer lips, and to really watch them plump and change colors. Like that is a self-love practice that will build your sense of confidence. It will
Yeah.
build your sense of your own essence. So your capital S self that I keep talking about. And when you're in that, when you're filling yourself up more with yourself, you have so much more to give to the world. And
Yeah, it pays
well,
dividends.
yeah, and it's overflowing, It's not coming from a place of depletion anymore.
Yeah.
So it's worth it.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'd like to discuss the topic of men's sexuality kind of in your world. And you've talked about, just the tip and mastering male sexual energy. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? We don't often talk as much about the males on here, so I want them to get a little something too.
I love this topic. I love the topic of male sexual mastery because I just love men.
Yes.
I have through doing a ton of healing work, feeling used, abused by men, and getting on the other side of that story and that repetitive wound. I see the beauty in them, and I think one of the best things we can do as being in relationship with men, of which many of us have sons or husbands or fathers or uncles or brothers or coworkers, is learning to see the best in them. So first and foremost is we tend to look at what they're doing wrong. And when we do that, what we're going to get is more of a relationship of what they're doing wrong. If we look at what they're doing right, we get to be in relationship with their genius and their greatness. And so there's that. I think that's a big thing that we need
Huge.
to turn towards when it comes to men feeling sexually confident
Mm-hmm.
and feeling sexually filled with vitality, that their desire is okay with us. So we also have to learn, how can we make a man's desire, how can we be the safe place for his desire? That doesn't mean that you're up for fulfilling every single one of his desires. That's
Yeah.
not what I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting is that you learn to be his safe place, that what his desires are safe with you. Because we have many desires and fantasies that we don't actually want to live out.
Yeah.
But they exist. They're like a doorway that turns us on, that actually brings that blood we were just talking about to the genitals. So we want to investigate our own desires, and we want to make sure that we're safe for other people to talk about their desires. That again will create intimacy. And so there's a part that I think we're really missing in our culture, where I would love for men to learn how to know how to ground a woman's nervous system. We're talking about heterosexual relationships here.
Mhm.
How to like really ground a woman's system so that she can feel that he's got her, that trust can deepen, that safety can deepen, that takes us into an altered state of relaxation
Mhm.
and helps us let go, allows us to surrender to ourselves and to them so that we can melt, so that our muscles are loose, so that we can all be open to this penetration because it feels so good to be
Yeah.
penetrated. And when it's good to be penetrated, it's because we are in a certain state that allows for that. And I think men they don't know how to take us there. And it's
Yeah.
quite simple. If they can learn that, then our capacity grows to be able to receive more of them, to receive more of their primal animal,
Mhm.
to receive more of their like crazy, yummy, ravishing, I'm going to take you and own you energy. And I think a lot of women really, really crave that.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
terribly terrified of it, and
Mhm.
yet we really, really want it. So we have to also know that there is an aphrodisiac when it comes to some fear and for being sort of a smaller and be able to
Mm.
take all that big bruteness and allow it to consume us. And so I think sometimes we're really mismatched because men are afraid to scare us. We're
Mhm.
afraid to be scared. So we have to find this way of like, how can we both be safe for each other so we can play with that energy?
Yeah.
And then the other thing when it comes to male sexual mastery, which is something that I help them cultivate, because this
Okay.
is an inside job for them, is how can they make love as long as they want to? How can
Mhm.
they start to relax into having a soft on? How can they make love with the soft on? Because there's some orgasms we can only have with a soft on. Because you
Yeah.
know what I love about soft ons? They're non-threatening. It's like sometimes like, oh my God, too much coming in. I'm not ready.
Yeah.
And so when someone knows how to make love with a soft on, there's something so supple and so beautiful with that. And men need to learn how to do that as they age
Mm.
because they do have a limited amount of sexual energy. So
Yeah.
that's one thing. Another thing is for men to not feel there's so much performance anxiety when it comes to men.
Mhm.
We can hide our turn on.
Yeah.
We can if we're not juicy, if we're not really in the mood, we can fake it, right? Men
Right.
can't fake it. Their
No.
erections, there is no faking it. So just think about the level of anxiety they must feel
Oh, yeah.
as compared to us. Their arousal's right there. Think about all the times that they're aroused and they don't want to be, how embarrassing that
Oh,
is,
yeah.
how many adjustments they have to make. And
Yeah.
so men have to learn that it's not just their penis that makes them a lover, their
Mhm.
whole body is what makes them a great lover. So
Mm.
the words that they say is what makes them a masterful lover. The way that they
Mhm.
look at us through their eyes, the way they can undress me from across the room,
Mhm.
that's going to turn me on. You want me to be
Yeah.
ready to be penetrated sooner? Learn to undress me from across the room. I
Right?
want to feel you making love to me before you even touch my skin. So
Yeah.
there's seduction things that men can learn that are artful, that aren't creepy.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
then there's like the way he touches, the refinement he has with his touch, his ability to
Mhm.
increase anticipation, his
Mhm.
skill with how he moves his pelvis inside of us instead of ramming us.
Yeah.
There's a way with which men can learn how to pivot their hips and
Yeah.
bring more elegance and refinement to how they make love, how they can shift the angles and massage different parts inside of our body. There's
Mm.
so much that we don't talk about, but the way he uses his eyes, his words, his mouth, his hands, and then his dick
Yeah.
are the things that would turn him into a masterful lover. It's not just his penis. And men have to realize that orgasm isn't just a thing that happens in the genitals.
Yeah.
All orgasm is energy and movement. When energy is stuck, it's painful. My bad back, my bad knee, my bad
Mhm.
neck. When energy is moving, it's ecstatic, laughter,
Mhm.
sneezing, taking a shit. There are
Yeah.
things that actually are quite pleasurable. We don't call them orgasms, but a belly laugh definitely is an orgasm. In
Yeah.
fact, for those women who think you haven't had a vaginal orgasm, I challenge you on that because anytime you have laughed so hard you have cried, your vaginal muscles are contracting exactly the way your vaginal muscles contract when you're having a vaginal orgasm. You just haven't been taught to
Mhm.
shift your awareness to see how your body is responding and dilating and pulsating. And so these are the things again the things that men really come to me for is fear of erectile dysfunction, fear of
Mhm.
premature ejaculation,
Mhm.
and a lack of confidence that they know how to make a woman come because
Mm.
their sense of self as a lover is more tied to satisfying us than what we can relate to.
Yeah.
Because we don't
Wow.
think like I'm an adequate lover if I can make him come.
Yeah. No.
They do.
Yeah.
So their sense of feeling powerful
Yeah.
and secure is based on that. And then again, that's just it. That's, if they can stay focused on their own sexual sovereignty, they wouldn't have all this anxiety. They could trust their body. They can trust that they can control when things get too hot and they know how to cool down. And then they can raise up the fire and then cool it down. So they start to learn about their arousal scale.
Yeah.
So we could have a whole episode just on that.
Yeah.
In fact, we have a whole program just on that.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's a big topic.
Yeah. And I think a lot of men, I've kind of figured out they don't realize, because we as women can orgasm 4, 5, 6, 7 times, whatever it might be. And the men think it's kind of one and done. So they don't actually realize there's so many more different ways for them to orgasm, right? Like, like massaging the prostate, right? It's another way.
Yes.
So,
non-ejaculatory orgasms.
Yeah.
You can learn how to separate orgasm from a tiring ejaculation.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Can you tell me a little bit about that and how they come to terms with that, realizing that they can?
Well, for most men, they feel like they grow up having orgasms with ejaculation, so they think it's the same physiological function, like that they have to go together. So to learn how to separate those two separate physiological functions is a practice for a man. And when you learn how to breathe and sound and ride the higher waves of arousal, like on the scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like, I'm just here, relaxed, everything's good. 10, like, oh my God, I'm about to come, or I am coming. If they can ride the wave of like an 8, a 7, 8, 9, then they have a lot more availability to be able to separate that orgasm from ejaculation. And so once you kind of get to that place as a male where you're like, oh my God, I'm about to ejaculate, you want to pause, pull back a little bit with your arousal. And there's some specific points and techniques that we teach inside of our courses. So when you use those at that moment, then you can actually teach your body, like, keep the ejaculation in, because each ejaculation is about 200 million potential lives that are going out into the sheets. That's a lot of chi, right? That's a ton of life force energy, chi, that is being lost and not being drawn back up into your body. One of the most valuable things about becoming a multi-orgasmic man, which means you master this non-ejaculation technique, is that you can keep going. You can have multiple orgasms without having to have a whole huge refractory period or go straight to sleep after you ejaculate. And it's also, same as it is for women, incredibly strong and powerful for your adrenal glands, which is going to keep you feeling more energy, more vital, more youthful. It's a longevity practice. You can draw that orgasmic energy up into your brain, and you can really like open up whole experiences of expanded consciousness this way. So it's really a worthy practice. The thing to keep in mind is that when you start to practice non-ejaculatory techniques, you go for having that orgasm, the orgasm feels different than it does when you ejaculate. Those orgasms do feel different. But what's so beautiful about it is it's like, instead of all of your arousal and all of your sexual energy just being in the shaft of your cock, you're actually turning your whole body into your cock. Your whole body is having this incredible
You're coming out your
arousal.
eyes. You're coming out your head.
Crown of your head. I mean, it's just phenomenal. And to witness a man doing this is just so fun.
Wow.
It's so beautiful.
Oh my gosh, this is incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. Ladies, this is just so much wonderful information. And I hope the audience is loving it as much as I am, because I want to try some of these incredible techniques. I think I've come to terms with it, that I'm ready to, kind of do that. And I really implore a lot of people to do that as well. So, Leah, I know you need to leave us here. I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show. And Willow, if you could hang out just for a few minutes, do our would you rather game before you go, I would love that. But anything else you just wanted to say before you left, Leah?
I love to leave people with this knowledge, which is that curiosity suffocates judgment. And where we really need to park our judgments is in the world of sexuality, where we criticize self or we criticize other. And if we could start to get more curious when our judgments arise, then we create more acceptance. We really come from a place of being open-hearted,
Yeah.
and curiosity is the path forward with that. So I hope as everyone has listened to this episode that we have goosed their curiosity and that they want
Yes.
more. So come check us
Yes.
out at sexreimagined.com, and we've got a free gift for everyone, which is Choose
Yes.
Your Own Sex Reimagined Adventure, where you can get
Ooh.
some free training videos and tutorials on many of the topics that we talked about today.
Oh, I love that. And I'll
So
have
we'll
that in
make
all
sure
the
you have the link.
description. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll put that in the description of the podcast so they can all go check that out. We want everybody to try that. So thank
great.
you so much for joining us today. It was
Yes,
just a
thanks
pleasure
for
having
having
you.
me.
And I will be putting out some of these clips and the video will be up on YouTube because I think that they almost need to see and watch you guys talk. It's like you're doing a dance, the two of you.
Yes.
It's really incredible to
Right.
watch.
And
So
we
thank
would
you
love
so
to
much.
republish the episode on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. So if we can get a
Yes,
copy, that'd be great.
absolutely
All
amazing.
right,
All right.
everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Leah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Okay,
Mama.
Willow, I'm just going to have you do a little from Mrs. to Ms. fun facts, this or that. I'm just going to give 10 questions. They're going to be either relationship or sex driven. You just say whichever one comes to mind
Sounds
first.
good. Sounds fun.
Okay, ready? Number one, an adventurous date exploring a new city together or a cozy night in with a homemade dinner and a movie.
Cozy night in.
Love that. If on a deserted island, would you rather sunset skinny dip or midnight beach bonfire?
Oh, both.
Skinny dip, then sit by the bonfire.
Yeah.
Number three, an unforgettable first date, but no second date, or a mediocre first date that leads to a long-term relationship.
Oh, long term for sure.
Go for it. Number four, blindfolded surprises or playful role play.
Both.
Number five, would you rather have the ability to read your partner's mind during sex or be able to control their sensations with just a touch?
I think those things can go hand in hand. You can kind of
Yes.
use one for the other.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love that. Number six, soft whispers or lingering touches.
Both.
Both.
Can't choose. Some of
I
these you
know.
can't choose between.
I know. We want it all. We want it all. Number seven, freedom with limited connection or deep connection with compromises.
God, where I'm at in my life right now, it's like I would have said freedom, yes,
Yeah.
in a few years back, but now it's more the compromise. Yeah.
Yeah, we're willing to do that. The
Yeah.
ability to orgasm easily, but lose interest in sex quickly, or struggle to climax, but have an insatiable appetite for intimacy.
Oh, neither.
Yeah.
Those
We
are
want the
both not good
insatiable
options.
appetite with the easiness to
That's
orgasm.
right.
Number nine, would you rather have sex with the lights on but be fully exposed or in complete darkness with heightened senses but no visual stimulation?
Oh, I like darkness.
Dark. Yeah. I like the dark with a little bit of light coming in just so they
Yeah,
can
a
see
little
the
bit
eyes.
light.
And number 10, a quickie in your favorite spot or a slow session in an unexpected place.
Ooh, unexpected, slower, better, longer.
Yes. Always. So thank you so much for playing along with that for me.
Oh, that
And
was fun.
before we go, okay, what is the number one mistake you think that people are making during sex?
I think that they're really, putting their own arousal and their own sexual energy in the hands of their partner. And like we've talked about already, it's like that isn't where it's at. Like you are responsible for your own arousal, you're responsible for your own sexual energy. You have an orgasm when somebody else is there. They just happen to be there, but it's your orgasm. It's your experience. You created it inside of yourself.
Yeah.
They might have been the container to amplify it, but it's still coming from within you. And the same is true for love. We think like, oh, I'm so in love with that person because of who they are. That is not true. The love that you feel is inside of you. It's your love, and you feel it because of you, because of who you've cultivated yourself to be. So sex and love have that common denominator. So if we can start to feel and see and understand that like my love is coming from inside of me, and you just happen to be a reflection of that outside of me. And my orgasm and my arousal is coming from inside of me, and you just happen to be here for it and get to see it and witness it. And you witnessing me in my aroused state turns me on even more. So I think taking ownership.
Wow. Love that. Great response. So before we go, where can they find you again? What are your social media handles? Do you have Instagram, any of that
Yeah,
stuff?
we've got Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all the goodies, Facebook, of course. And I am at drwillowbrown.com. Leah is at moreloveworks.com.
Okay.
And then you can find us together on sexreimagined.com. And you can find all those same things on our social media
Yes.
accounts. Yeah.
Wonderful. And please, we want everybody to go check out the free gifts that you're offering in the different
Yeah,
rooms with things that they can learn and listen to your podcast. So that's
absolutely.
amazing. Wow. Thank you again for joining me today. And thank you
So
to
much
the audience for
fun.
listening. I love talking this stuff because it doesn't get talked about enough. It's such
Mm,
taboo for people. And so I really hope people are listening and they're experimenting and trying things. So that's
yeah.
amazing. So thank you, listeners, for joining me this week. You can find me at from.mrs.to.ms on any social media platform, and you can email me at info@fromMrs.to.ms.net. Hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week. Thanks. Bye.